They're quieting down even before we start. Yeah. Good morning. That was loud. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. I'm Tony Fisher, grateful to be back after a couple of weeks away, rested and tanned and ready to go. There's so many places to go, isn't there? Yeah. I wanted to express my gratitude for, and I don't think I've actually done this specifically, for our greeters and our ushers who welcome us with big smiles every Sunday morning. They do a great job of welcoming both stranger and friend. And, I was talking to Cliff and Patty, the A-team, of course. The A-team over there, the A-team over there.
Yes.
Everybody's the A-team, Yeah. But thank you. I think it makes a big difference here in the congregation throughout the year with such a welcoming group of people. So thank you so much. I don't have any specific announcements today. There's a lot going on. This is the last Sunday of our gallery exhibition down in Menaker Foyer. So if you haven't been down there, take a look. It'll be undergoing, what do they say, renovations, a little painting, so we can mount the next show. So that's that. I am very grateful as well to have Bobby Schuster here as worship associate, and take it away.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, all. And let me add my welcome to you, whether you are here in the sanctuary, out on our lovely pavilion, or joining us online. To those of you who will be watching the recorded service on Facebook or YouTube, welcome to you as well. Please come and join us in person some Sunday or send an email to office@uunaples.org to get on our mailing list. Is there anyone here for the first or second time this morning? Anybody? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. We invite our newcomers, or anyone else for that matter, to come on forward after the service so Tony or I can welcome you personally. Also, after today's service and after you've had a chance to get some coffee, we have an orientation here in the sanctuary for anyone who would like to know more about the congregation. It will begin at about 11:20 and last about an hour, and among other things, you will find out how you might engage more fully in this community. If you look on the back of your order of service, you can check out our congregational mission and vision. It is by living these values that we try to make a difference in our own lives, within the community, and in the world. And now, let's take a deep breath and center ourselves for this hour together and begin with the morning's prelude.
We gather with a shared yearning for a planet where justice can prevail. We come from a place of need, seeking community of caring. We dive in with a curious mind, ready to encounter new perspectives. We enter bearing our grief, searching for peace in a time of uncertainty. We show up out of a sense of passion with a vision for the future. We arrive from many different places, seeking to share our journeys, finding sustenance in community, renewal in our shared values, and a sense of purpose to continue our work in the spirit of love. Let's join together in the chalice lighting words you'll see on your screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission, to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And let's rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, Love Will Guide Us, by Sally Rogers. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Please be seated. So this is one of three services about Unitarian Universalism that will be based on the chalice lighting response that our children use on Sunday morning, both in the Spirit Play class and in our youth classroom. And if you remember, we'll be saying this in a couple of weeks during our in-gathering service, but we are Unitarian Universalists. We are the people of the open mind. We are the people of the loving heart. We are the people of the helping hands. So I'll be giving three services about each of those throughout the year, probably the first part of the year. And today we're starting on Labor Day with our helping hands and the work that we have done and the work that we have to do in the world. As a people of a progressive spirit with curious minds and compassionate hearts and a desire to serve, we have been a bit overwhelmed by what's going on in the world. And whether it is the cold atrocities overseas or the assaults on our democracy at home, we grieve the loss of so many innocent lives, and we grieve the loss of our own sense of stability in our own country. Every day, news grabs our attention, wrenching it away from yesterday's distresses, and the day before that, and the day before that. The only real antidote, in my mind, is action. But sometimes we aren't sure which way to turn and often wait for someone else to tell us what to do, and still, our old habits hold us back. It's then important for us to sometimes to connect with our history, our tradition, and our theologies and what it speaks to us about how we act in the world. I want to start this morning by telling the story of Joseph Tuckerman, someone whom you may or may not have heard of. The Reverend Joseph Tuckerman was born in 1778 in Boston, Massachusetts. And he was born of an established family, had some wealth, had the opportunity to go to school and to college, and did so. He went to Harvard College. He was roommates with the Reverend William, well, not yet, the William Ellery Channing, who down the road led our Unitarian denomination in its formation. And by Joseph Story, who became the Chief Justice of the Massachusetts General Court. Joseph Tuckerman was not the best student in the world. His roommates often chided him to do some more work and read his books and study, and he wasn't really interested so much in studying books as he was in studying the world around him and walking around and learning through experience rather than through books. But he made it through Harvard and graduated, and at the age of 23, he was ordained and became the minister at our congregation in Chelsea, Massachusetts. And he served there for 25 years, mostly undistinguished, although his congregation loved him for his pastoral work. But at the end of those 25 years, preaching twice a Sunday, he found that a sort of a chronic health issue, was beginning to impede on his ability to speak loudly, which is problematic for ministers, and especially before these things came around. And so he decided to retire from that ministry. But right away, Reverend William Ellery Channing, at that point, the newly appointed leader of the American Unitarian Association, asked Joseph to assume another role. So at a time when he could have easily retired comfortably and taken care of his health issues, he agreed to become the first at-large minister for the association to the poor of Boston. And he took on that role with surprising energy. He was truly inspired by the call to this work. He didn't know exactly how to go about this. It was a relatively new role. Certainly congregations of other denominations in the city were attending in some ways to the poor through charity work. But he wanted to figure out how best to do this, so he read about their efforts. He read about working with the people on the margins, many of whom were immigrants in Boston, coming from Ireland at that time, and other places coming in from the country to work the newly established industries in the city. So what he decided to do was to walk the city and visit with people in their homes. In the first 2 years of his ministry, he visited well over 1,000 homes, touching base with the people, understanding what their needs were, asking them specifically, what do you need to begin to thrive? And the answer early on was mostly food, clothing, of course, real issues of need, real important things that we all need. And he was able, through the generosity of the congregations in Boston and their charity work, to provide much of what they asked for. It wasn't a lot. But the real key to his ministry was that he stayed. He didn't leave once he had sort of made the rounds and figured that out and then provided some form of flow of goods or money to the poor. He stayed and he continued to ask questions. He continued to understand his neighbors to a much greater degree. And through that study, through those conversations, he was able to develop a systematic and practical approach to ministry, which sort of presaged the social gospel movement later in the century, and also American social work. He was, in some ways, known as the father of American social work. So it was an extremely important ministry early on in the American Unitarian Association. And the interesting thing is that, by far, but by many accounts, Joseph Tuckerman was, at least in social circumstances, was dull, stiff, and largely uninterested in anything he wanted to talk about except his own social and religious issues. But his congregation and those people in the community, those members of the marginalized group in Boston, began to really love him, not just for what he was able to bring them, but for his authenticity, for his honesty, for his love. He was, in fact, expressing his theology every time he went out into the streets. He was able to express his sense of the all-encompassing love of God through his own actions, modeling that love and the teachings of Scripture through his own actions. He understood the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, words that we still use in our own expression of values as Unitarian Universalists today. He lived his theology. He lived the love that we aspire to every single day, and he made a difference in the city. We can be inspired by his personal integrity, his courage, his humility, and following the imperatives of his faith and his theology, no matter where it led him. We can appreciate his authenticity. He didn't deny who he was. He didn't play someone else in order to visit these folks. He was who he was, and I think they appreciated that. The people to whom he ministered sensed his love for them and respected him for his honesty and his commitment to their well-living. And for us, in this time, as we try to meet this moment in history, we can only consider how we might connect deeply with our own theologies, with our own inner sense of who we are, our own integrity, and begin to translate that out into the work we do, our labors in the public sphere. Let's join together in singing our centering hymn, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me, fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión, sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. As a welcoming community, we value the connections we make within this community and, of course, outside. And we take this time every week to share with one another those things that are troubling us or those things that are bringing us joy. I need to share with you, sort of brief news was sent out yesterday of the passing of John Womack on Friday evening. John was a member of this congregation for, I think about 11 or 12 years with his wife Joanne, and I was with her on Friday just before John passed, and she was doing fine. She's doing okay, and she's got plenty of friends visiting and taking care. But if you happen to have a chance to call or visit, I think she would appreciate it. John provided us with his wit and wisdom. He certainly was in decline for many of the last few years, so some of us didn't get to experience some of that. But he was an intensely curious man who served the Air Force for 20 years and in public life, in accounting and auditing. But I think his curiosity and his writing, he wrote about 5 books and self-published, were really his identity. And so we will miss John. And also, since I've been gone, the passing of Dick Mackin, and a tremendous loss for this congregation. His intellect, his passion for learning and growing, his dedication to the forum, all those things. We will miss Dick immensely. And his service, celebrating his life, will be next Saturday afternoon. So hope you can all make that. If you have a personal joy or sorrow that you would like to share, I hope that you'll raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone. Tell us your name and briefly what's in your heart.
Hi, I'm Katya Griffith, and I have 2. Well, one is a sorrow, and the other was somewhere in between. First of all, Harriet Lancaster, whom you all know, who's one of my dearest friends, was on a cruise with her daughter Alana up in Alaska, and when they got off the cruise, they were supposed to do some traveling, but Harriet came down with what seems to be a problem with her gallbladder. So they transported her across Alaska from Whittier to Anchorage, where she had surgery a couple of days ago. Alana wrote to me that she got through it fine, but I haven't had a chance to talk to her. It's a 4-hour time difference, so I'll call her today. I think she's going to be fine, but I thought you'd want to know. The other is very personal for me, because a woman named Andrea Lissette passed away this week, and she was a very close friend. And a close friend of this congregation, I don't think anybody but maybe Patty Friedman would know who she was, but she ran the children's program here. She was the head of RE, we used to call it. I don't know what we call it anymore. But she was the head of RE. She was a professional social worker. She wrote a book on abuse back in the day when that was not very well known. She had a very interesting life, knew the Kennedys personally and so on. Well, a wonderful woman, and she wrote an autobiography, which she had just finished, so I don't know if it's been published. I've read many parts of it. But anyway, Andrea Lissette, and I will miss her a lot. And I hope those of you who knew her, will, if you want to know more, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Kati.
I'm Skip Lundborg, and I have a joy today. My wife, Tony, with an I, not a Y, and I are observing our 62nd wedding anniversary today. And I was glad to be able to say that out loud to some of my friends here, because unfortunately, my wife has lost track of those things because of her dementia. And that's why many of you here have probably never seen her. But she's doing fine, and I'm glad to remember the anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Skip, for your love and dedication too.
Hi, I'm Ellen Rubin. I was going to do my sorrows, but instead I'm just going to tell you that tomorrow is both Steve Espinosa and Ann Fullerton's birthday. So if people want to, September 1st, people want to wish them a happy birthday.
Thanks, Ellen.
Good morning, Vincent Keys. Today I want to say that we've come a long way here in Collier County. There was finally, after many years of discussion with the Collier County Commissioner's Office, finally an erection of the historical marker for the unknown or abandoned African Americans who are buried at Pine Ridge and Goodlet Frank. And so although we swim against the tide sometime, there's still some hope left in the world.
Thank you, Vincent, and for your work and labors. And Diane, too. For those joys that have been spoken and those sorrows that have been shared, we're grateful. And for those joys and sorrows that remained unspoken and held in our hearts, we acknowledge your life, your joys, your sorrows, and we are with you. Let's join together in the spirit of meditation. Spirit of life and love, God of our deepest understanding. As we go about the labor of our days, grant us the wisdom to know what is right and the will to follow our conscience. Unite us all in the solidarity of human compassion. Fill us with the splendor of human diversity. Illuminate the ways of truth that we may navigate the dangers and difficulties of hatred, misunderstanding, and war. Enable us to blend science and poetry in the pursuit of peace, so that together we can build a rational, just, and compassionate world community. Allow us to always see each other in the other's eyes, so that the golden rule becomes the common rule for all. And that love, our only hope, survives and flourishes. Let's spend some time in silence.
Clarence Russell Skinner was the preeminent Universalist minister of the early 20th century. In 1920, he founded the Community Church in Boston, seeking to move beyond doctrine and denominationalism by shifting the concerns of the church toward real and immediate human problems. As dean of the School of Religion at Tufts College, Skinner inspired a generation of young preachers to bring social issues into the pulpit and into the activities of the church. In talking about Skinner, historian Ernest Cesaro said that Skinner's passionate concern was to connect religion and society so intimately that an expression by an individual of the former would inevitably involve that person in the problems of the latter. Skinner wrote, "Universalists are free people. Therefore, they should be in the front rank of the daring few who are fighting the battles of social emancipation. They have pledged themselves to break the tyrannies of the mind and strike the shackles of tradition from the soul. If they are true to the spirit of their faith, they pledge themselves to free humanity from the economic degradation which fetters it, body, mind, and soul in this 20th century. The logic is relentless, the implications clear. Universalism, by its very genius, is led into the great social maelstrom because it is essentially a battle for the freedom of the common man. It is a struggle for complete emancipation."
Of all the messages that I took in as a youth, directly or indirectly, from parents, grandparents, ministers, mentors, by far the strongest was the idea that it was our responsibility as an individual to contribute and try to leave this world a better place than the one I inherited. Lesson was shared in many different ways. At home, at church, at school. Sometimes it was direct, sometimes it took the form of highlighting a prophetic woman or man who had made a difference in society. My grandmother, for example, used to tell stories of her personal hero, Susan B. Anthony, who attended the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. Anthony, who worked so hard for women's rights, held a simple, pragmatic philosophy. Tired of theory, she wrote, I want to hear how we must act to have a happier and more glorious world. But it was actually my grandmother's own actions, her gifts of time and talent and treasure to those causes she believed in, that underscored her stories and made them much more meaningful. And this was true for so many of the adults in my life who were involved in their own activities outside their normal work, church, civic, charitable organizations, none of it done with any great fanfare, but just an opportunity to roll up their sleeves and get the job done when the need arose. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has so many people, past and present, known and unknown, who have worked hard to make a difference. Our work in the world is, in fact, part of our identity as a religious movement. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal faith, one of the most liberal of religions practiced in the world today. Religious liberalism's defining characteristic is its posture of intentional engagement with modern culture. Liberal religion starts with the premise that religion should be oriented toward the present, taking fully into account modern knowledge and experience. Liberal theology starts there and moves towards an incorporation of those understandings into a new worldview. So rather than resist new developments, liberal religious people tend to incorporate them, embracing them, even pushing forward towards greater change. UUs are not alone in this. There are certainly liberal strands of every major religion that remain open to new ideas and revelations. But it is why, from our earliest days, Unitarians and Universalists have continually sought to keep their religious commitments relevant and credible. Our openness to new ideas is one of the reasons we've recently embraced transformation as one of our key values. Even before 1800, when Unitarians began to separate themselves from the standing Calvinist Christian congregations in New England, there were proto-Unitarians who harnessed their energies towards change. Colonial preachers like Charles Chauncey, known as the Patriot Preacher, who advocated for rational religion. And Jonathan Mayhew, who has been called the father of civil and religious liberty in America, who preached that humans, not God, were responsible for creating and maintaining a just and equitable society, and so blended that message with his calls for civil disobedience to the British Crown. Unitarians John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, among others, worked hard to move our newly formed nation toward democracy. Their deist belief, meaning they believed in the existence of a supreme being but rejected the idea of divine intervention in human affairs, contributed greatly to their conviction that every individual must be active in shaping their own destinies and together in shaping the destiny of society. Another signer of the Declaration of Independence, Dr. Benjamin Rush, a Universalist, was an active voice against slavery in the early years of our nation, understanding with the context of his faith that God's love was big enough for everyone and that our human responsibility was to emulate that love for all. He also advocated for free public schools, sought improved education for women, and argued for a more enlightened penal system. Jefferson, who was a follower of John Locke, who held the idea that by nature human beings possessed the right to life, liberty, and property, and for Jefferson, this translated to the American project of creating a new nation with room to expand where people could flourish in freedom. And Jefferson had also read Immanuel Kant and was in sync with Kant, who basically believed that that intellectualism, that reason was the source of light, and that this was in tune with the feelings and the intuitions and the common sense of all people, the common folk in the land as well as those who had means. They believed in God, but not in the miracles, and they admired Jesus for his moral teachings. Jefferson's sense of possibility and immediacy, the idea that our freedom calls us to action, had a powerful influence on the nation in general and on religious liberals in particular. It certainly influenced the Reverend William Ellery Channing, who was indeed one of the key figures in defining early Unitarianism, who wrote, "I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past nor live in its old virtues, but which listens with new and higher monitions of conscience and rejoices to pour itself forth in fresh and higher exertions." Unitarians strongly believed in salvation by character, the idea that it wasn't what you believed that wasn't important, but how you lived your life that more clearly expressed your values. And thus they were ready to dive into the American experiment, many of them inspired by Channing. Aside from Joseph Tuckerman, who you heard about earlier, there was Elizabeth Peabody, one of Channing's congregants, an important Unitarian in her own right. Peabody understood the importance of human agency, believed in developing the young mind and understanding the importance of that in the development of our society. Growing minds mean a well-understanding democracy. And along those lines, another of Channing's congregants, Horace Mann, helped to create the first public school system in Massachusetts. Dorothea Dix worked for the imprisoned and the insane. Samuel Gridley Howe developed methods for teaching the blind, deaf, and mentally challenged. Julia Ward Howe worked tirelessly for women's rights, all inspired by William Ellery Channing's ministry. And if Channing helped to create the framework for an active social engagement in society, the Reverend Theodore Parker pushed liberal religion, at least the liberal religion of comfortable Bostonians, to the edge of their comfort zone. Parker was a staunch and active abolitionist who formed what was then called the Vigilante Committee to help and harbor runaway slaves, many of whom stayed in his own home. When the Runaway Slave Act was passed, Parker chose to ignore it, determined to follow what he saw as a higher law. There were many in the Unitarian clergy who were angered by Parker's boldness, but they had very little effect on his actions. One of them actually offered a prayer against his work. "Lord, we know we can't argue him down," it went, "and the more we say against him, the more people will flock after him, and the more they'll love and revere him. O Lord, what can be done for Boston if thou dost not take this and other matters in hand?" Parker was the author of the famous remark that's been quoted even recently from this pulpit. "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience, and from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." Parker spoke this of the abolitionist movement, but it certainly can be expanded to represent the liberal religious view and the sense of what our engagement in the world is all about. And this spirit has informed and motivated countless Unitarians and Universalists in the ways of their living and their faith day after day. Parker was also sophisticated enough to understand that in the face of the world's inequities, charity was not enough. And what was needed was systemic change. He identified 4 major power configurations at work: commercial power, political power, ecclesiastical power, and literary power that controlled society and with which any reformer had to come to terms. He was wise before his time to the influence of commercial power, writing, "It can manufacture governors, senators, judges to suit its purposes as easily as it can make cotton cloth. Your Congress is its mirror." You can just hear Parker's disgust with the wealthy merchant class and mill owners in the North a good number of them Unitarians who bristled at the abolitionist movement because it threatened their own livelihoods and their comfortable lives built on the backs of slavery. The Universalists of the day were also beginning to see the scope of society's needs, with so many people coming to this country, so many who didn't have the means when they landed on this land. The bedrock of Universalist theology, the belief that God's love extends to all humanity, provided a strong moral and ethical foundation for social activism, especially early on in opposition to slavery. Led by ministers like Clarence Skinner, whose words Bobby shared earlier, Universalists dove headfirst into the social gospel movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a movement that focused on the application of Christian teachings to social justice, inequity, materialism, and in creating their own reform society, Universalists listed no less than 40 areas of concern, including women's rights, education, and serving those most marginalized. Throughout the 19th and 20th century, Unitarians and Universalists discovered new insights from the world's religions, new understandings from the fields of science and technology. They incorporated those ideas into their theology, further expanding their vision of what the beloved community might look like. And when the humanist movement of the early 20th century emerged and began to have a major influence on both Unitarians and Universalists, they understood the nature of morality as being uniquely human, but also asserting the need for positive intervention in the affairs of society. Among the 15 points in the Humanist Manifesto of 1933 were the words, "The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world." From the birth of our nation to the present, there have been prophetic women and men in our faith who have made significant contributions to the advancement of our society, and for each one whose name we know, there are thousands of unsung heroes whose efforts have been indispensable. From those involved in the civil rights movement and the women's movement and the effort for LGBTQ rights and for environmental justice, they have heard their calling from many different directions, but each has found in their individual moral and religious compass a direction. They've hitched it to the wagon of faith and the power of community and pointed it towards the future. And this is our work as well, to consider the particular values that we hold at our core and step out of our comfort zones to act in a world and society that needs our clear minds, our good hearts, and especially our helping hands.
Thank you. In Unitarian Universalist congregations like ours, the power rests in the pews. Together, we choose the direction we want to take as a community of faith. Together, we agree on how we want to be with one another in relationship. Together, we are accountable for the way the organization runs. And together, we are responsible for its financial well-being. No monies flow in from other sources. We depend on the collective generosity of our members to keep this wonderful place and this wonderful community thriving and relevant. Our Sunday collection is an opportunity to respond to the moment and offer something over and above our annual pledge. And so, for the ongoing mission of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples, this morning's offering will be greatly received. If you are at home and watching online, we encourage you to send a check to the address on the screen or go online to our website and use the donate button. The ushers may come forward and thank you.
You and I now enter into this stream of history. Like the Universalists, we could list so many issues that need our attention, so many places where freedom and justice are in peril. And like Theodore Parker, we too understand all too well where the power lies. It is up to us, individually and in collective conversation, to understand how we fit into this world and figure out where our core values will take us. Our current strategic planning process is not so much an exercise in nuts and bolts planning, but a shared effort in how we as a congregation will meet this moment. I came to ministry late in life, having put off that call a long time. But not only that call, but the work of leaving the world a better place than the one I inherited. After 11 years in ministry, I still struggle sometimes to know what I'm being asked to do. And yet the roll-up-the-sleeves attitude that my parents and grandparents modeled is always present in the back of my mind. And these words from my grandmother's hero, Susan B. Anthony, sound in my conscience. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputation and social standing, never can bring about change. Those who are really in earnest must be willing to be anything or nothing in the world's estimation, aligning their sympathies and actions with their highest values. There's a wonderful story that when Susan B. Anthony was interviewed by the journalist Nellie Bly, Anthony was asked if she prayed. She replied, "Not on my knees, but with my work. My prayer is to lift women into equality with men. Work and worship are one with me. I cannot imagine a God of the universe made happy by my getting down on my knees and calling him great." Susan B. Anthony is an exemplar of the many prophetic women and men who have helped shape the Unitarian Universalist movement and our society more through their deeds than through their words. Let us be inspired by their labor. Let's rise in body and spirit and join in singing our final closing hymn, "For All That Is Our Life." It's number 128 in the gray hymnal. Words will be on the screen. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failure, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings. Have a wonderful day.